If men were angels, no government would be necessary. James Madison. Welcome to another episode of the Presidential Series. My name is Logan. This is Better History, and today we are talking about James Madison. This is a little bit different from last week's episode where I tried to make it, more of a narrative and not more kind of like a movie. I don't know if I did well. Let me know. These ones I like to be laid back, chill, kind of, act like we're having a conversation here. So James Madison was born on March 16th, 1751, and he died on June 28th, 1836. One thing he did outside of his presidency was to help draft and promote the Bill of Rights. That was one of the most important things he did outside of his presidency. Let's get into the good and the bad things. The first thing he did that was good was successfully navigate the United States through the War of 1812. While the war itself had mixed results, it ultimately helped to secure the independence and national identity of the U.S., the United States. The Treaty of Ghent, signed in 1814, which ended the conflict and reestablished pre-war borders. We were going to take some bit of Canada, but then the British Canadians pushed us out. So it just ended up, nobody gained anything there, really. I got this from the Miller Center, and they noted that many Americans viewed the War of 1812 as the, quote, Second War of Independence. So, if you want to fact check me, the Miller Center. I'll also let you guys know what I used at the bottom, too. So, yeah. All right, the second good thing that he did was strengthen national unity and confidence. The conclusion of the War of 1812, which we just talked about, along with successes like the Battle of New Orleans, fostered a sense of national pride and contributed to the era of good feelings. It was a period of political unity, and everybody was, so happy, and it reduced partisan division. That was the second thing. Now, the third thing, encouraging American manufacturing. The British blockade during the War of 1812 highlighted the need for the U.S. to become more economically self-sufficient. Madison recognized this, and the government began supporting American manufacturing, leading to the growth of industries, particularly in the Northeast. Now let's get into the bad things. The first bad things was his economic policies. Now, he had some good economic policies, but mainly bad. He allowed the charter of the First Bank of the United States to expire, which led to financial instability and difficulties in funding the War of 1812 after it ended and during the war. He also had problem maintaining an embargo policy, and the problem was that he did maintain this, and it harmed American trade and the economy. It was really bad for the trade and the economy. The second bad thing is social and moral issues. His continued ownership of slaves, despite recognizing its morality, was a huge problem for the citizens of America. They didn't like that. I mean, I wouldn't either if my president was like, free the slaves. It's bad having slaves, but yet he had slaves. Another bad thing was his prejudice against Native Americans. This is still part of the social moral issues, sorry. This contributed to policies that led to conflicts. He didn't like Native Americans. He didn't want them in our land. He thought America was our land, and it is now. So it led to many conflicts and displacement of Native Americans. Push more out west. Sorry. West. I don't know if you heard that. The last bad thing was the War of 1812. Now, I had it up there as a good thing. I don't believe it was a good thing. I don't believe we should have gone to war with Britain. I think we should have just stayed out of it. Like George Washington says, neutrality is the best thing. He also says no political parties, but look what we did. Entering into a war, such as the War of 1812, was bad. It's always bad going into war, but we were financially and militarily unprepared. Yeah. We didn't have enough soldiers. We didn't have enough money. We're a brand new country. We've only been alive since 1775. That's almost 30-ish years, 40-ish years. It wasn't good for us. And plus, there was the burning of Washington, D.C. Everybody should know about that. The British burnt down the White House and the Capitol building, and they burnt many, many things that were important to Americans. There was a significant financial cost, which kind of goes back to the economic policies where he let the charter of the first bank expire. It cost a lot of money to fund this war, which isn't good. You know, you always want a war to be expensive as possible. You know, there was also the initial appointing of incompetent military commanders and secretaries. This is my favorite part. I always think it's funny when people, like have people step into office, no matter who it is, and they're like, this person's going to be a great person for this position in office. And then they go and they do terrible. Kind of like Jefferson Davis appointing people that nobody trusts. I got that from the Miller Center as well. Last thing about the War of 1812 was missing the early opportunity to actually end the war when they rescinded the orders in council shortly after the U.S. declared war. So we could have never had deaths, actually. Now this is said by the Miller Center. I trust them. I don't know if you guys do. That's the end of the video. The sites that I used today were the Miller Center, obviously. James Madison University. I trust them. I go to them for a lot of stuff, actually, not just stuff on James Madison. And the National Archives, my all-time favorite site to go to for history. So yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, like, subscribe, share. If you want to help keep history alive, donate to the link on the screen. It'll also be in the description down below. And you know the drill. Day or night. Have a good one.